Hello everyone. There have been many requests sent in to us asking us to explain how to solve the most difficult and challenging levels on the Switch Challenge assessment. It's important to remember that these tests are adaptive, which means as you progress and the more accurate you are, the more challenging the levels will get. To make things more difficult, you only have a limited amount of time as the tests are timed, so you need not only to work accurately, but also quickly to do well in these assessments. And we will help you to do this. We will start off by going through a quick example on the most basic of levels, just to make sure we understand the core concept and what is needed before we move on to the most difficult level you can come across on these assessments and share some tips, tricks, and techniques on how to solve them quickly. I'll start with the first level, which will be the most basic and straightforward, just to make sure we understand the core concept of how to solve these puzzles, and also to become familiar with some tips and tricks on how to solve these quickly, remembering that speed is essential in these kinds of tests. So with the Switch challenge, essentially what's happening here is you have a set of shapes at the top. So you can see you have a set of shapes at the top. Then they go through this operation here, and the result is spat out at the bottom, as you can see by the set of shapes at the bottom here. So essentially we have an input, which is this set of shapes, and then we have an output, which is this set of shapes, and we need to determine which one of these operators will lead to the correct answer, and which will give us this set of shapes. And I will show you two ways of doing this. The first is how most people will do it, and I can assure you if you do it this way, it will be very unlikely that you will do well because it's very time consuming. And then I will show you a second way, which is much faster, and once you practice it and get the hang of it, it will allow you to progress through the test much quicker and get to the more challenging levels, increasing your chances of success. And before we start, whenever we're looking at any of these puzzles, the first thing we need to do is imagine the sequence of shapes are numbered, as you could just see here. So always the first shape, imagine it numbered as number 1, second shape, number 2, third shape, number 3, and the fourth shape, number 4. And so if we look at the first way of trying to solve these, we need to focus on the operators in the middle, and we will solve each of these until we have the right answer, and then we can move on to the next question. So if we look at the first operator here, this operator, we will answer for that one. So simply the first thing we do is we look at number 2. So the first shape will be number 2. So as you can see, we'll go back up to the input, and we saw that we numbered this number 2. So this is the second shape. So this becomes our first shape after it goes through this operation. The second shape is number 3 from the input. So again, we go back to the top. Number 3 is the square, and so we know the second shape from this operator is the square. Again, for the third shape, we have in third position, we have the number 4. So again, we go back to the top. Number 4 is the triangle, and so we know the third shape in this operation is the triangle. And finally, number 1, so which is the circle, and so this gives us the circle. Now, if we look at this set of shapes and compare it to the output or the expected answer, we do not have a match. So we know that this is not the correct operation, or not the correct answer. So we then move on to the next operator, and we do the same thing and we try to solve and see if there's a match. So again, the first shape is represented by the number 2, so we go to the top. Number 2 is the cross. The second shape again is number 4, so again we have a square. Number 4 is the triangle. Then we have the number 1, which is the circle. And finally, number 3, which is the square. Now, when we cross-reference this with the expected answer, we can see we have a cross, we have a cross, we have a triangle, we have a triangle, a circle and a circle, and square and square. So this gives us the right answer. So now we know that the right answer is this operator. So if we were actually doing the test, we will select this answer and move on to the next question. But for the purpose of this video, we can also solve the last one, the last operation. And when we do that, we can see we get the following answer: 4, 4, 3, circle, and then the cross. And again, if you cross-reference that, you know that this is not, it is not correct. If we were really lucky, the right answer would have been right at the beginning. So it would have been this one, which would have meant that we would have only needed to solve one operation to get to the right answer. On the other hand, if we were really unlucky, the right answer would have been at the end, which would have meant we would have had to solve 3 operations, 1, 2, and 3, before we confirm we have reached the right solution. As it happened for this puzzle, we fell in between and we had to solve 2. So we had to solve this one, and then we solved this one, which gave us the second one, which gave us the right answer. This way relies on luck and can be very time consuming. So instead, we should find a quicker way to get to the right answer. And this leads to my second way of solving these. And for this method of solving, we will ignore the operators and instead focus on the output. So we will focus on this set of shapes to get to our answer. And what we will do is we will look at the first shape, which in this case is the cross, and we need to find where it is in the input. So if I go back to the top, we can find that the cross is in position number 2. The cross is in position number 2. So this means that my first number in my operator should be number 2. Then the next shape in the output is the triangle. So again, I'll go back to the top into the input shapes and find that the triangle is in position number 4. And so my next number will be 4. Again, I'll do the same thing with the circle, and as you can see, it's in position number 1 in the input. So my next number in my solution should be 1. And finally, in the 4th spot is the square. And so I go back to the top, find where the square is. We can see it's number 3, and so 3 is my last number. Now, this set of number, or this number, represents our solution. We need to match this with one of the operators to get the right answer. So we can see that it's not this one. So this is 2, 3, 4, 1. So it doesn't match. It's not this one, which starts with a 4, 4, 3, 1, 2. So that's obviously also not the right answer. But this one in the middle, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 3. So again, we have reached the same answer, but in a much, much quicker way. And something important to know is I covered the operators now just so we can focus on the output and not be distracted. But of course, when you're solving these, you shouldn't cover the operators, as you should keep referencing back to them. And sometimes you will get clues and you wouldn't need to even completely finish the solution to get to the right answer. But we will look more into that and into the other tips and tricks and techniques which will allow you to solve these much quicker later on. So as you've seen, the second way of solving these is much quicker, and once you've had some practice and get the hang of it, you will be able to answer these in a matter of seconds. Now, let's move from the easiest level to the hardest level that you can come across when taking this kind of test. And if you remember, these tests are adaptive, which means the better you do, the harder the levels get. So if you come across these levels, then you know you're doing well. But don't stop there, you need to continue doing well. And as with any type of problem, there are going to be multiple ways of solving them. So today I will show you 3 different ways that you can solve these tests or these puzzles. And the first one will essentially show you the core concept of how this can be done. So this is just for understanding purposes. It is very time consuming, and for this reason should not be used during the actual time tests. It's more just for the understanding. The second way I will show you how to answer in a much quicker way, but it will require learning a new technique. So I will also teach you how to use this new technique, which involves working backwards. But don't worry, it's not as complicated as it may sound. After some practice and when you get the hang of it, you'll be able to do these pretty quickly. And then finally, the third way, it will allow you to get to the solution even quicker while still using this new technique. So I will teach you that along with other tips and tricks. And the key difference, if we're looking or comparing between this kind of level and the levels we saw before, is you still have the same input, or you still have an input, you still have the output, but what the key difference is that it needs to go through 2 sets of operations. So it will go through the first level, then it will go through the second level before spitting out that final answer. And this was what gives you the increased or multiple possibilities, and which is what makes it really time consuming. Again, so let's go into answering it or solving it. Again, like we did with the other example we looked at, we need to imagine that these shapes are sequenced as follows. So the first shape is number 1, the second shape is number 2, third shape is number 3, and the fourth shape is number 4. And then we go to solve for the first operation, which will be this. Like we did the last time, we look at number 2 and we go to the top, and this is our number 2, and so we put that in. It was the triangle. Number 3 is the square. Number 1, which is what you have over here, is the cross, and then finally 4 is the circle. Then what we need to do is use this set of shapes and put it through each of these operations to see if we achieve this solution. So once again, we need to imagine that these shapes are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we start solving for the first operation. So 2 is the square, 3 is the cross, 1 is the triangle, and then 4 is is the circle. And we do a quick reference check and we can see that this is obviously not the right answer. So we move on to the next one. And so then 2, again square, 3 is the cross, circle, triangle. And again, we do a quick check to see if that's the right answer here, and it's clearly not. So we move on to the next operation, and 3, which is the cross, 2 is the square, 4 is the circle, and the last one is 1, which is the triangle. And again, you can see that this result does not match with our answer, and so we do not have a correct solution using this operation. So what we now need to do is go back to the first level and then look at this operation and see if any of these possibilities will give us the right answer. So in the same fashion, we will now solve for the second operator in the first level, and we'll see if any of these possibilities give us the right answer. So as always, we have our numbers, so we know, and then we go ahead and try to resolve for the second operation. So 2, 3, 4, 1, and as you can see, 2 is the triangle, 3 is the square, 4 is the circle, and then 1 is the cross. So this will be our new set of shapes, and then we need to solve each of these operators using this set of shapes. So again, we imagine them numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we start over here. So 2, you can see 2 is the square, 3 you can see is a circle over here, 1 is the triangle, and 4 is the cross. And then we do a quick reference check with the answer, and we can see that this does not give us the correct solution. So we move on to the next one. So 2 is the square, 3 circle, 4 cross, and then 1 is the triangle. And again, we compare this result with our expected answer, and there's no match, so this is not the solution. And then finally, we do the same thing with this one. So 3, which is the circle, 3 is the circle, 2, which is the square, so the square, and then 4 is the cross, and 1 is the triangle. And again, we do the cross-reference check with the expected solution, and we do not have a match. So we now need to go back to the first row and use this operation and do the same exercise, solving for each of these 3 to see if we get the right answer. So we go back to the first level and work on the final operator. So we need to solve for this and see which one of these will give us the right answer. So we now know that one of this and one of these should give us the right answer, because this is the last one remaining on the first row. So again, we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, and we start solving for the first operation and or the last operation on the first level. So 3 we can see is the square, 2 is the triangle, 4 is the circle, and then 1 is the cross. And as always, we give this new set of shapes the numbers, so we're working around those, and then we start solving each one of these. 2, we have the triangle, 3 is the circle, 1 is the square, and then 4 is the cross. So again, we look at this, compare it to the result we expect, and we see it's getting close, but it's not quite right. You have a square and then you have a cross in the third place. So then we move on to the next one, which is 2, 3, 4, 1. So 2 is the triangle, 3 is the circle, again 4 is the cross, and 1 is the square. And now when we compare this to the expected answer or the expected result, we see we finally have a match, which tells us that this and this are the correct answers. So what you would do is you would select this box or this operator and this operator and click on next, so you can move on to the next question. But for the purposes of this video, we will just look at the solution for the last one, just to confirm that it's not going to give us the right answer. And as you can see, we do not have a match. As you have seen, this is a very time-consuming way of doing it. And depending on your luck, you may have to perform as little as 2 operations. If this operator and this operator would give us the correct answer, then we would have only had to perform 2 operations. On the other hand, if you're really unlucky, where this operator along with this operator would give us the right answer, we would have had to perform 12 operations to get to the right answer. And you saw in the previous example, or in this example that we just did, we had to do 11 different operations before we actually got to the answer. And like I said before, this is not the way you should do it. We don't want to rely on luck, and we still need to get to the right answer much quicker. So this leads me to the second way, in a much quicker way. So this is the second way of doing it, and it will require you to solve each of these operators using this set of shapes, as we did previously. So 2 is the triangle, 3 is the square, 1 is the cross, and 4 is the circle. And then we do the same thing for this operation, or this operator. So 2 is the triangle, 3 is the square, 4 is the circle, and then 1 is the cross, and so on. So you do it for the top line, and then for the second line, you need to forget about all of this on the top half and then focus on the output. And what you will do is you will use the output to work backwards and give you a new set of shapes over here. And if you look here, these are the answers you will get. And now you have a set of shapes at the bottom or on the second level, and a set of shapes on the top level or on the first level. And what you need to do is find 2 that match. And we know from the previous way of doing this that these 2 match, and you can see here that they clearly match, and this will give us the right answer. Now what we have done is we have reduced the number of operations required to get to the right answer. So even in the worst case scenario, which would have been this and this, if you remember, we would only need to perform 6 operations to get this. In the best case scenario, you'd solve the first level, and if you got a match immediately here, you wouldn't have had to complete these 2. And so we would have been able to get to the answer in 4 attempts. Now, I guess you're asking me, how do you work backwards? How do you get this set of shapes? How do you go from this to this? And I will show you that now. So if we go back to the most basic kind of levels, we can use this to show you how to work backwards. So we will just go back to this level just to allow us to focus on the technique on going backwards. So the first thing you will need to do is, when you're trying to work backwards, is imagine there are 4 empty positions. And as always, each of these positions have a number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The first being number 1, 2, number 2, and so on. And what we do when we're working backwards is we're looking at the output and we're coming back towards the top. So in this example, we look at the first shape. We then look at the first number, which tells us which position it should be. So the cross should be in position number 2. So we have the cross there. The triangle it's telling us is referenced by the second number, which is telling us it should be in position number 3, which is this one. Then the circle, we look at the third number is 4, so it's telling us that the circle should be in position 4. And then finally the square, it's telling us that the square should be in position number 1, and so this is our sequence of shapes. And this is all you need to do to work backwards. And again, you look at the answer, and there is no match. So this tells us that this is not the correct operator for this puzzle. So then we do the same thing for the next operator. So we imagine there's 4 positions, and each one of these positions is numbered. And then we look at the first shape. It's telling us the first shape should be in position number 2, so that your cross is there. The triangle is telling us the triangle should be in position number 4, and this is position number 4, so the triangle goes here. Then the third shape, which is the circle, is represented by the third number, which is 1, so it's telling us the circle should be in position number 1, as you can see. And then finally, of course, the square is represented by position 3, and so this is position 3. And now when we cross-reference the input or the expected answer, we see we have a perfect match, 3, and then the 4 is triangle, so we know that this is the correct answer. And again, we can just do that with the final operator just for practice purposes, and you can see we do not get a correct answer. So hopefully this has explained how we work backwards, and then next I'll show you how to combine these techniques and some tips and tricks to really be able to answer the questions much quicker. So now that we know how to work backwards, let's look at the third way of doing this, and hopefully you will be able to see that this is a much quicker way of doing it than the first way that we actually completed this puzzle. So for the first level, as with always, you would answer, and we've done this so many times, so I don't think I need to go through it again. So you just solve the normal way, so you'd use these and come down and use this operator with this set of shapes to get this solution. Now, instead of going this way and continuing to solve for the first level, we will go straight to the second level, and we will work backwards using this. So this solution, or this way of doing it, will require us to juggle. So we'll go forward using this shape, and then we'll go backwards using this shape. Then we'll go forward using this shape, using this operator, this shape, and then we'll go backwards using these shapes and this operator, and so on until we have a match. And what we're looking for is a match between this set of shapes, any one of these set of shapes, and a match with any of these. So now that we've done the first operator, let's do one on the second level. So again, like we learned that we need to imagine 4 positions, and the triangle is determined by the first number, which is number 2. So we know that the triangle should be in this position, position number 2. The circle, we look back, it should be in position number 3. So the circle should be here. The cross should be in position number 1, so it should be here. And finally, you can see that the square should be in position 4, which is here. And the first thing we do is to see, is there a match between this and this? And we can clearly see there isn't. And so we move on to the next operator. And again, we solve this. We know how to solve this one going forward using this set of shapes. And so we need to focus on this working backwards. So again, we imagine there's 4 empty spaces. Triangle, position number 2, circle, position number 3. The cross is telling you it should be position number 4, so the cross is there. And then finally the square should be position number 1, and so it is right there. And now we check to see if there's any match between any of these or any of these, and we do not find any matches. So we need to continue, So now again, we go back to this one and we solve in the normal way, going down, and we get this solution. And immediately we can see that this and this match. So we see we already have a match here. And so our answer will be to select this one and this one. And that will give us the correct result. And we can move on to the next question. But for the sake of this video, let's just look at how we can solve this one backwards as well. You can see triangle should be position number 3. Circle should be position number 2. The cross should be position number 4. And the square should be in the first position. And that doesn't match with any of these on the top. So again, it's critical as we are juggling through these to always be cross-referencing what's already been solved to see if we have a new match. So we're always trying to match one of these top 3 solutions to one of these bottom 3 solutions. And as we saw, this one and this one match. So in the best case scenario, this one and this one will give us the right answer, in which case we would have only done 2 solutions or 2 operations. And in the worst case scenario, this one and this one would give us the correct answer, in which case we would have done all 6 of these operations. But still, this is significantly quicker than doing it the first way I showed you. Once you get the hang of this, once you start doing this enough, you will be able to really speed up the way you do this. And sometimes you will not even need to finish some of these. So for example, if it was this and this was the correct answer, you wouldn't even need to go all the way to the end, because after you've done the 5, you may realize you may already have the answer. Hopefully I have made this clearer for you and have shown you how to solve these much quicker. Like I said, once you practice and get the hang of doing these, you'll be able to start picking up your own tips and tricks, and we'll start to see that you are answering these much quicker. There are many other tips and tricks, so follow us for more to make sure you don't miss out. If you have any comments, questions, queries, or you need any clarifications, please leave us a comment and we will try to get back to you as soon as possible. I have shown you the easiest and the most difficult levels with some tips, tricks, and techniques on the quickest ways to get to the solutions. But if you have any other levels or examples you would like us to go through, then please let us know, as we are currently looking at making another video with all the levels in between in terms of difficulty very soon. What you see now on the screen is an example which I would like you to try for yourselves, and let me know if you can find the right solution using the technique, tricks, tips that have been learned in this video. Finally, we also have a booklet with more practice questions for all the various levels with the solutions, which you can use to help you really sharpen your skills in solving the switch challenge and to make sure you do well in the actual test when you take the actual assessment.